Thanks.
Perfect. And just by way of introduction, so everybody knows, Mike and I co-direct the Institute for International Conservation. And so we try to bring in folks to speak about international issues and international work they might be doing. And we also give out grants to students for international service and research. So our latest grant cycle is just wrapping up, but if you're thinking in the future about doing work internationally, keep that in mind as a resource. It's not a lot of money, but it's a friendly atmosphere and it chips away at it. And if you know of other people who are thinking about doing international research next year or a capstone service project, something like that, let us know. We also just did our coffee order, but next year there'll be more opportunities in the fall semester to order coffee through IIC, and the funds of that go to supporting the student scholarships. Mike, what else would you add about IIC for folks?
That's about it. We do have our website that you can find through the Antioch website, Institute for International Conservation, and we have information for students that are seeking scholarships or grants or other useful resources. And another member of IIC, Nate Irwin, will be doing a art show in collaboration with the Harris Center the night of graduation of the AU graduation on May 13th. So that will be in the Wednesday Weekly, and yeah, just that will be coming up in May.
Great, welcome Suzanne. Thanks Mike for that added info. With that, Ximena, please take it away.
Okay, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. So please let me know if you can see it properly or not. Okay, it should be. Is that okay? Can you see it? Okay, so yeah, first of all, I'm really happy and excited to be able to share a little bit about my thoughts, I will say discovery is not, I don't even know if I should use the word discovery, but my main thoughts and reflections on this topic of decolonizing research. Just as a disclaimer, I'm not expecting giving you lots of theoretical information because I'm not an expert, I'm just a learner, but yes, I mainly want to highlight my main thoughts so far. So let's start with that. So just to know a little bit of myself, I'm Peruvian. I come from a city called Arequipa. You can see the picture of the main volcano in my city. So that volcano is called the Misty, and it's just it's gorgeous, as you can see, especially when it gets snowy just on the peak. It's the only place where we can get snow, just on the peak of the mountains. I'm a biologist. I'm also a teacher. You also can see a picture of my adventure in the jungle, and some of my picture, another picture with some of my kids, my first experience as a teacher in a public school. I'm very close to become an environmental educator by Antioch. Sounds crazy, but I'm about to finish the environmental education concentration. It's unbelievable, it's bittersweet, it's exciting, and I have no words to thank for the opportunity. I'm passionate about education, very passionate about like opening doors in terms of education and bringing opportunities for different type, like people who need it. I'm also very passionate about nature. My friends also know I'm passionate about the sloths. I haven't seen one in the wild, not in the wild, nor in a zoo yet. I hope to see one someday soon, but in the wild. And I really like all classic music. In terms of my interest of research, I'm interested in the intersection of science education, place-based education, indigenous knowledge, environmental education. It's kind of a new intersection But I'm more than excited to start exploring how we can actually integrate in a respectful way knowledge coming from indigenous communities into the science education. So it's more or less what I'm gonna start researching more in the future. And yeah, so after talking about myself, which is always weird, I wanna, before starting talking about decolonizing something, I feel that we need to have like a common background or a common understanding of what is decolonization. I know there are a lot of different concepts, there are a lot of different ways to understand what is decolonization as a process, but I chose one of my favorite authors so far in Chilsa. They wrote a book about indigenous methodologies to decolonize research. It's a book that I'm reading for this project, like in general. I really like the way how this author center people, not only referring to indigenous like itself, like the term, but also centering the idea how they call the other. That I mentioned the other is indigenous people, of course, but also other type of people who are historically underrepresented, underprivileged. We can like recall examples like, for example, Black people around the world, like, and other type of people, or even women in some societies. So we understand decolonization by Chilsa, how this process of centering the concept, the centering the worldview, or this colonized other, or the other, how they call. So in that way, when they decolonize, they can understand themselves through their own assumptions and their own perspectives. In other ways, through their own way to understand the world. It's like stop imposing other models, but allowing them to understand the world, how it was for them before colonization and how it is changing, evolving, and adapting over time. It's also interesting because another author like Smith, I really like this definition because this author is also making this difference, kind of touching base on the past, but also in the present and the future of this decolonization process, through saying that this is the restoration, the development. You can see cultural practices, thinking patterns, beliefs, values that were relevant, they are still relevant, for not only for the survival of what people understood before the colonization, but also for the birth of new ideas, new techniques, new lifestyle that permit the advancements and the development of these historically oppressed others. So this is an interesting concept to see how it is based on the past, but it's still in the present, and more on this, it's giving people space to see the future in a way that includes who they are. So, and I choose this picture. It was taken in the recent series of protests last year in Peru. In the cartel, they say, shoot down the Congress. And as you can see, those are mainly women coming from an indigenous community in Cusco, in the high mountain in Peru. And I chose this picture because I was thinking it's kind of interesting to see how even this way to understand authority and how the authority has been, you know, the whole political system has been designed is just a more representation of the colonized pattern, and how those group of people are still feeling underrepresented and misunderstood or just completely forgotten. So that's why I choose this picture. So then, this is talking about the colonization in general. As I told you at the beginning, I'm not expecting giving you a master class about the colonization. I'm just a learner. We all are learners, but I'm a special beginner. So I just wanted to give some like preliminary information. And speaking about decolonizing in research, you can see the nice picture of those indigenous people getting ready for the anthropologists to come to research them. So again, like bringing those ideas from Chilsa, they understand that decolonized research is this process of conducting research in a way that the world view that, again, the others have a space to communicate from their own frames of reference. So this is an interesting point because it's pretty much saying that when you are decolonizing your research, you are giving a space for people to show who they are in the way that they really are. It's not like designing something that is just adjusted to the Western way of doing research, but it's more responsive to the people needs in the real world in some way. So Chilsa also mentioned that decolonizing research can be described as researching back. That means question how the disciplines, we are talking about anthropology, sociology, or all the different disciplines that in some way work with people, have described or have theorized about the other. So that's an important point too, because we have thousands of books describing how people are, how savage people were before they were colonized, and how they are carrying that knowledge and all of those ideas. So decolonizing research is an invitation to question back disciplines and to start casting doubts about like if we are actually doing research that is responsive and meaningful to them, more than only being meaningful to us and to our own understanding or to our own expectations. Then I wrote down 2 ideas that I came to my mind, and then they are coming constantly during my research. That for me, decolonizing research means listening from the heart. It's like a deep down process. It's more like listening what you want to listen. It's more like actually listening what people are saying through research. And also means learning from, learning with, and learning for. And every time that I think in these 3 words, I kind of understand better that people are not an object in our research, but people should be part. We are learning from them, we are learning with them, because at the same time they learn, or they, in the ideal situation, they should learn something from our research, from our practices, and also learning for, because you know, the knowledge created or the knowledge gathered from people should be also returning to them, to the owners. So having understood that, or reflecting with me about that, I'm gonna tell you, so since this talk is more or less a reflection about the past, the present, and maybe touching some ideas on what are my expectations on the future, I'm gonna tell you about my previous research conducted in Peru. So just to give you some facts or some information, I did a research in 2015, during 2015, 2016, yeah, like so, seems to be so long ago now, in a native community called Infierno. Just for fun facts, Infierno means hell in English. And this community is named like that because it can be very hot, very, very hot over summer. So that's why the name of the community is located in the region of Madre de Dios in Peru. The field work for this research was conducted between June 2015 and March 2016. It constantly travel to the community and I stay with them. The longest period was 2 months, and then I was going back and forth. So I had multiple time an opportunity to be in the community. I collected 130 botanic samples. That means plants or parts of plants. Towards the end of the research, I could identify 157 useful species because the whole research was about identify, classify what plants people use for different purposes in that community. When we say different purposes, they use plants, we know. It was not only collect, oops. Hello?
Yeah, you're back. I mean, it froze for a
Okay.
second. You're back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it was not only collect the plants, but also it was in some way collect the information. So for that purpose, I did a series of interviews in the community with one shaman expert. I don't know if I'm frozen.
We can hear you now. I think it's okay.
Okay, I was trying to change. Okay, so for that purpose, I did interviews with one shaman expert who spent lot of time with. I even moved to his house just to have more frequent and more in-depth conversations. You can see the shaman over there, this Josemi Shahau, he's a descendant. I should have mentioned that this community belongs to the Eseja tribe. So Josemi Shahau is one of the elders from this community. Right now, he's pretty old right now. It's kind of sad. And after the research, I also designed an environmental education program using the information that I gathered through the research. And also I designed a booklet with all the information in order to bring the community back their knowledge. And, you know, in an organized with pictures. So this is more or less what I did. If you wanna read more about that research, I also published an article, so you just need to let me know and I can send you the link for the article. I also have some pictures over there of some of the plants that I collected and I reported through the research. But yeah, that was the research. But after that, and even at that point, when I finished and when I was completely embedded in the biological world, you know, in this very Western way to understand the world, when I finished the research, I started questioning myself so many things. My first question was, when I designed the proposal for the research, I categorized plants based just on bibliographic research, which that means that I had categories like ornamental or like decoration plants, which based on books and based on research seems to be accurate. But when I went to the community and start talking to people, they say like, what are you talking about? We don't need decoration. We're in the jungle. You know, we just need to open the window and we are gonna see plants and animals. So we don't need like gardens with flowers. So that was one of my main, like, okay, I feel like I have designed something just based on books. The second one was the design of the interview guides. Again, I design everything based on research, books, talking to experts on like interviewing and working with people from indigenous communities. But when I was on the field talking to people, I realized that my questions were too rigid and there were no space for deep connection. So that was another fact that at that point back in my life, so many years ago, I started to say, I think those questions are not actually, like going deeper. I don't know if I am collecting information that actually can be meaningful for them. And this is kind of related to the next one about openness and acceptance. They were very reluctant from the very beginning. I was very lucky and very blessed to have Jose Mishaja working with me, because since he was an elder, he just suddenly one day he came to the place where we were staying. He knocked the door and he said, I know you are researching and I want to help. So he helped me to open the door with other people. But in general, I feel like because of the interview pattern and guide and the whole situation, it was very hard at the beginning to try to break the ice and start talking to people. Then my other reflection, observation question was how to return their knowledge, and I capitalized the IR because the knowledge is theirs. It's their knowledge collected gathered from and passed on from their ancestors for hundreds of years. And it's something that sometimes the Western world seems to forget. They seem to, like, the knowledge was there, but it was not there before them. They were the ones trying and collecting and organizing and passing on the knowledge. So it's something that I always talk, and there are lots of research talking about like how to bring back knowledge, but in the same research, I read something about like people don't want to participate because they see how the knowledge just go and never is back. So that was in the past. So to travel to the present, currently I'm working on my capstone project to graduate. The title, as you can see, my research is called Peruvians Platicando. Platicar means talk. I use the word in Spanish because the research is in Spanish. I'm researching people in Peru. Drawing the present and future of environmental education through sense of place. So just to give you some brief information about the research, this is an exploratory research. The purpose is more or less learning how sense of place is developed and is manifested in a small sample of Peruvians. What I want to pretty much do is to verify the feasibility of the construct of sense of place to be used as a foundation for the advancement and of the field of environmental education in the country, in Peru. To put that in other words, I want to see, so yeah, maybe I should go back a little bit. So before doing this research, what I want to do is to kind of set the foundation how to organize the environmental education field in Peru, because right now the field is not very advanced and it's kind of very scattered efforts around the country. We don't have an organization like the North American Association here for environmental education. We have just some organizations working separately. So I thought about that. But then when I started to question myself, and by talking so much with Jean, we kind of realized that the first step to decolonize my research is actually knowing what people are expecting from environmental education field in Peru, how they see the future. So I kept going down and to try to understand them. I kind of realized, and my initial thoughts was like the sense of place is very well developed in Peruvians. In other words, Peruvians have a very strong connection to the land, to their to their identity as Peruvians, and I thought that that might be maybe the strongest foundation for the development of the field in Peru. I mean, at this point, I'm only giving my perspective and how I understand. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. And probably there are so many other small factors that I'm not seeing. But that's why this research is just want to know how is this sense of place developed in Peruvians if we actually in a near future can use this deep sense of place to set the foundation for the development of a more organic and organized environmental education field in Peru. So for the purposes of this research, I'm talking to 3 people. I have already done that. My 3 people were a high school student, a worker of one of those environmental education organizations in Peru, an indigenous descendant. This person comes from the Quechua, I don't know if I can say, it's not a tribe, but the Quechua people, I think is the most accurate way to call them. The decolonized perspective and method that I'm using for this research is the one called pláticas. Pláticas, again, means like conversations. And this is a decolonized, recolonized method that explains how when you are conducting research, especially research of type interviews, you are still in this role of authority asking people questions. And that this cannot be the best way to work, especially with Latin communities, as they mentioned. This method has been used a lot with Chicana communities, that mean Mexican born in the US communities, to research about like connection to different things. It's a very interesting approach that includes storytelling and includes more than a formal interview, an informal, friendly, opening conversation. What I want to try for this, what I wanted to try for this research. So this is more or less, if you want more like information about this research, I'm still working on it. But my learning so far, as I mentioned, I'm done with the pláticas, with the conversation with the participants of my research. My first learning so far is the pláticas and storytelling really opens out. And when I say that is what I opened my conversation, just letting them know that that was not an interview, that was a conversation, that they were allowed to ask as many times as they wanted, and all this information. But that after that, I jumped sharing with them a personal story of my childhood. And when I went to the river with my dad and all the adventures that we had in the river when I was like 5 or 6 years, and my dog, and we learning from nature and how connected I was to the place. And with the 3 people I talked, the reaction was pretty similar. They immediately started sharing something very personal, something that connected them to nature and experience, a moment, and a special moment of connection with family, with the place. And which was even more amazing is like they kept like recalling the story through the whole conversation. They were even like remembering new stories and keep sharing during the conversation. So if I compare what I did in the past with these people in the native community, I honestly could see a big difference in terms of openness, in terms of connection. Even though we were talking just through Zoom, can be sometimes very impersonal. yes, so that was one of my main learnings so far. Is it felt so good. I have so much information that I wasn't expecting to get that deep, but I'm so grateful for that. My participants were amazing. My second learning was about the lack of decolonized research. So this is a kind of, I would say like a new scope or a new understanding of research. So there is not a lot of information, especially in Latin context. Sometimes I have trouble with the word Latin, but I will say like in South American context, and even worse in Spanish. So this is something that should be becoming more popular, I hope, in the future. Then another learning, and this coming from my conversation, from my pláticas with the people, and the common themes that I have found so far is the value of family for my three participants were so important. So I would say, well, I cannot generalize only with three people, but I would say like for my three participants, they were very family-centered. That was something that I kind of expected from my experience of being Peruvian and how Peruvians understand the value of family. And also the huge pride of being Peruvian. And that was also one of my main, my initial thoughts, that the environmental education field should be built based on that, of like just strengthening this idea. Because yes, Peruvians, we are very proud of being Peruvians, and our level of connection and identity to the country. I mean, it can vary between people, but in general, I can say that yes, we are proud of being Peruvian. So, and the people also, my participants also, you know, they talk about history, tradition, natural resources, and so many other reasons why they feel part of something, why they feel part of the country, and why they are proud of being called Peruvians. So again, I also found a deep connection with memories in natural spaces, memories that involve family, friends, and it's very attached to this Peruvian identity. How they kind of like recognize themselves as a part of a whole country. And also other of my key findings so far is this. One of my questions was, what characteristic in a Peruvian you can find that can help them to, you know, to care about the environment. I didn't want to use like directly the word environmental education during my plática, because this can be a very difficult in some way term for people to understand. So instead of giving the technical word, I try to give them some examples. I try to avoid technical words during the whole conversation because I wanted a real connection. So, and their thoughts were like, you know, the characteristic that they identified in Peruvians, they were this empathy, this cooperation, and mainly the love towards their country. So this is more or less, they more or less align to what my initial thoughts that I could find in Peruvians, or in this sample, these tiny samples of Peruvians during my pláticas. So right now I am just keep working on the draft, and, you know, keep analyzing, but I just wanted to share some of what I'm finding so far. And to talk about, just to finish this conversation, what are my perspectives or gains so far in terms of, you know, because the talk was about the perspective of past and present perspective in decolonizing research. So and at this point, I need to apologize to you all, but I have more questions than answers. I'm usually have more questions than answers. Sometimes I wonder if someday I'm gonna have more answers than questions. I don't know. But those are my main perspective so far, like like after comparing both of my research in the past, the one that I shared, and this that I'm involved with right now. My first question is how to prevent my research from perpetuating and nurturing colonialism. And this is something that I keep thinking very hard every day, because I kind of came to the realization that all the practices that I knew, that I learned from school, from my formal education, were pretty much based on colonialism and Western understanding of the world. And I feel like at this point, I've kind of keep wondering a lot. And even when I'm writing something, I'm kind of wondering if I'm writing something that only perpetuates these ideas of colonialism, or if I'm writing something that actually can be read and understood for a broader public. So this is something that I'm probably gonna keep asking myself a lot. But my preliminary answer is just, I guess, is by questioning. How can I prevent something is by keep questioning what the practices look like and what are the real implications of the practice. And in this point also, I was working in this presentation, I just remember how when I was in the jungle, one of the participants that I tried very hard to contact and to be able to set an interview to talk, this person told me something like, I don't want to talk to more white people. And I'm not even white, but it's how this person looked at me, and I was like, I just wanna make, I just have some very fast, some questions, please. And he was like, no, they always come, they always ask questions, they always take our plants, our animals, and we never see them back. I don't want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I feel like if we don't start questioning our practices, we just gonna keep perpetuating and nurturing colonialism. The second perspective of gains is to re-evaluate the role of the participant in the research. If the participant is really a participant, or if I'm seeing this person as a source of information. Because when you're a participant, you participate, and you participate through the process. You feel engaged through the process. You can see yourself mirror in the research, in the process. But if you are only a source, so you are just, they come and they take what they need from you. So, and I'm starting to see, a difference between being a participant or being a source. And at this point, I kind of right now I'm realizing it's very linked to the other one about participatory action research that I know Jason is teaching. I took this course, I don't think the last semester, but yeah, I took this course too. And then we were talking through this course how when you are doing participatory action research, you start meeting with people from the very beginning of your research. You start working with them. They are part of the planning part. They are part of even like to design the different stage of the research. They are present. And more of that, towards the end of the research, they also see how something changed for them. It's something about action too. So yeah, I think it has to be a lot also with empathy, with connection, with your participants. The next question is, what does the participant gain from your research? And in this point, I also wrote, not everything is money, by the way. They not necessarily have to gain money. Well, ideally, maybe you can give them no money itself, but I don't know, maybe some donation for the community if you're working with a community, or like material or something that they might use. But there are so many other ways how people can feel that they are being rewarded after participating in a research. Like for example, what I tried to do in my past research is, like, after realizing all of these and having so many thoughts, I designed a booklet with all the information. So I found someone helping me with printing out. So I print out like small booklets, and I send all that booklets to the community. In that way, they could have, since they have lots of tourists coming to visit the community, so I thought, okay, maybe that might be helpful for them to show their plans, to show what they have, their resources. But even with something that came during my pláticas with my participants now, when we were talking, and something, this is like an emotional gain maybe, the three of them told me, oh, thank you, because through our conversation, I could remember something that I haven't thought for a while. You made me think about, or you made me remember about my dad, or you made me remember about my grandpa. I'm gonna call him and see how it is, or something like that. So I could see how people can get benefit in so many different ways of level, but they can feel that they are not being the source. They are participants. They also gain. Then, yeah, another gain is the use of methodology, vocabulary that are actually familiar to people. And then I wrote, we don't need more researchers with mustache and monocle. I mean, I'm not trying to targeting a specific group of people, but I thought, like this understanding of the researcher, like someone very far away, someone who speaks like intricate language with big words, difficult to understand, impossible to approach. But starting getting closer and closer to people, and coming back to this idea of learning from them, learning for them, learning with them. So yeah, and that's also crucial. And that sounds also that when I started my formal education, my undergrad as a biologist, this is something that I always wonder. I always wondered, and I always was asking questions. Why do we have to speak like this? Why do we have to use these big words that nobody else is gonna understand? Nobody more than us. When I back to those years, I never found like answers, which was kind of sad, because they were like, it's how scientists write. You have to write like a scientist. And I was like, yeah, but maybe we can write something like a scientist who care about people understanding. But yes, it's not about only vocabulary. That's why I also try very hard to avoid any kind of technical words during my current research, but also it's about methodologies. So if I start sharing like a story with them, it's something familiar for them, it's something that they know, that they can engage with easily, they can feel identified too. And my final perspective of gain so far is like, we always need to question our beliefs, and we need to start questioning more the world, because this is a world that needs to be changed, and needs to be changed with people too, including people. Not only like, oh, I'm gonna change the world, but you need to include others. You need to listen to others, and to listen what others needs, especially if you are planning to work with people from represented or underprivileged communities. So I think that's all that I have to share. I don't know if someone has comment, question, criticism, or all of that is welcome. And you see my picture thinking about how we can decolonize the world. That's also a picture from the jungle. So you can understand all my dirty look.
Thank you.
But thank you so much.
Great presentation, Ximena. We have time for a few questions, so I'll just open it up. There's a lot of pensive faces over here, I think, Ximena, as we think about what you shared.
Great job, Ximena. I have a few questions. Really interesting presentation. What was your most interesting plant or plants that you saw in the jungle down there? Seemed like a pretty interesting field.
Oh yeah. So many different types of plants. Maybe one of the most well-known is the very ultra famous ayahuasca that so many people are crazy about because of the hallucinogenic properties. Which is curious about this plant is a very important culturally plant for them. So for people in the jungle, it's not only a plant to get very high and hallucinate about the world. It's more a plan to connect themselves to who they are, to nature, to animals, and to have like a different understanding. One other thing that was really interesting about, I only saw that plant once and it was cultivated. And the shaman I work with told me that it's becoming almost impossible to find ayahuasca in the wild because people are like over harvesting and he even said like to show this deep connection to the world, to the plant and to the natural world, that even every time when he sees or when he wants to get close to the ayahuasca, he talks to the plant, he asks for permission to get closer. So it was not something like, oh, I'm gonna go and just get a piece of the plant and be happy with that. So yeah, and I have seen so many different plants. Some of them also was also very interesting for me to see. You can see, for example, here that I try to translate the name in English. The tiger's paw. They have so many plants and fruits that they use for consumption that I honestly think that they have a lot of potential in terms of, agriculture and like starting agroecological businesses, and also to hire people from this community, like harvesting, cropping, working with those plants, and they are just disappearing little by little from the native state, from the native status or state in the jungle. So yeah, but yeah, this community was not very far away from civilization, from Western civilization. It was just like an hour and a half driving. But even because of that, the degradation in the area, and Peru has a lot of problem with illegal mining in the jungle, especially in this part of the jungle. So they are struggling a lot with taking care of their physical space and protecting species. So that was other of the reasons why I wanted to start with this very fast, and the number of native descendants living in the area is decreasing so fast. So yeah, it was so hard even finding descendants that time.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Jason, any questions over there?
So I have one, Ximena. As you kind of progress further in your understanding and working with decolonizing methodologies, I'm wondering if you still have confidence that environmental education as a concept has the malleability and openness to work in a Peruvian context, or has your work given you any pause to the thought that there might be something kind of wholly different or from a different lineage that needs to be the foundation of what you're thinking about, and that environmental education might be sneaking in some colonialism in some way?
Oh, that's a good question. I was scared of you asking me if I thought that we should use environmental for sustainable development instead of environmental education in Peru. Yeah. I would say that we need in Peru, we need to broaden the understanding of what environmental education, I don't want to say is, because I feel like nothing is, and it's just something that is always changing over time. It's getting more complex. It's opening also like to new understandings. But I feel like so far, since in Peru, we have an environmental education department within the Ministry of Education. But the way how they approach environmental education is pretty limited, I would say. They work, with recycling, with segregating, with, I don't know, like riding bikes, but that's all. And you can see how people see environmental education, they understand environmental education, just something like that. So I think that we need to start broadening the concept. And through my conversation with those people, I can see how they relate to some of them mention like, yes, we need to connect people to the place, because when they are connected, they care about the place. They care about what is happening with the place, with the world, with the country, with the world. So, but people are not connected. So you can see just in that basic complex phrase how they know, they can see that there are something more than these very limited activities. That I'm not against them. I just feel that they need to have something more, something to connect people in a deeper way. So that's my first thought. My second thought is also, yeah, I don't know if we need to use the word environmental education itself as a Western idea. But what I feel is like maybe we need to kind of maybe use the same term, but kind of building our own understanding based on what the characteristic of the country and the people that are different from other countries. So I feel that's the way to go. Is just starting to work based on what we have, more or less something like that. If that makes sense in some way, I hope so.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you for not asking about the environmental for sustainable development.
Next time. So we'll take a question from John, and then I think we'll break after that.
Hi, Ximena. I'm John, and I'm the herbarium coordinator. And I hope this isn't too off topic, but you mentioned the elder who you were working with who demonstrated needing to ask permission from the plants before collecting. And I really resonate with that. And I also have witnessed here in the United States people who pay lip service to that, and they ask the question, but they don't know how to hear the answer. And so I'm wondering if if in that work that you did, you have anything that you can say about what we need to do in order to be able to hear the answer in all of our research in which we're interacting with other living organisms, how we can learn how to hear when it's not appropriate to take something. Does
Ooh.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's a very nice question too. So the other day, and just to tell a tiny story, the other day, I'm currently taking Quechua classes. Quechua is one of the main languages in Peru, apart from Spanish. Well, actually, Quechua was the language of the Incas. So I'm taking classes now, trying to learn. And I'm mentioning this because our teacher, who is a Quechua descendant, she mentioned the same idea about human beings not being able to understand nature. She said that their ancestors always tell the story how when Christianism and the whole colonization came to America in general, we stopped learning and listening from the land because of all the new beliefs that were imposed to us. And she said, since the Pachamama, Mother Earth, wants to keep communicating to us, they use animals. And she said the animals are now those carrying messages between nature and the humans.
You froze again, Ximena, if you can hear us. Rats.
Tell us stories.
A minute, it froze just as you were saying. Hopefully you're not frozen now. Oh, can you hear us? Oh no.
I'm here, I'm sorry.
All right, a minute, it
Yeah.
froze. We're all on the edge of our seats, but it froze right when you were saying that
Yeah.
animals are communicating kind of.
Yeah. So the idea is, so my teacher always says that story about like animals communicating the messages from the Mother Earth to us, to humans, so that we just need to pay attention. And then I'm also gonna kind of, I'm sure that my friends and classmates in the classroom are very familiar with Robin Kim. And she always says how we just need to pay attention. We just need to pay attention to the details, to the tiny details, to see and to understand things that maybe are out of our normal human sight, but they are present. So that I will say that we just need to pay attention. And we always should have a very humble attitude, not only to work with people, but to work with all beings. And always having this idea that we are working to learn from, with, and for, not in an extractive way, but in a way to also thinking like, okay, I'm researching, I don't know, like mammals or something. So how are they gonna be benefit from my research? What are they gonna gain from it? You know, I'm extracting samples, or I'm collecting or I'm collecting eggs, or I don't know what other type of research, but how they can be benefit. So it's like, I feel that at this point of life and climate change and a lot of social crisis happening around the world, it's more important than ever to start researching with a bigger purpose of writing a paper, or with a bigger purpose, or like just submitting something cool for a congress, or for a, I don't know. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that we just need to start thinking how our actions can have a greater impact in the world. And I hope I know it can be very confusing, but I hope that answered your question in some useful way.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you again, Ximena. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
And best of luck finishing your capstone up as well.
Oh, thank you. I need luck.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.